Welcome to Season 3 of the Guardians of Hope podcast. We are a community of parents, educators, health, legal, and tech experts dedicated to positively impacting children's lives. The thoughts and opinions of my guests are not my own. This is a platform for sharing. All right, welcome everyone. Whether you are married or single, watching your children leave home can trigger unexpected emotions and life changes that many parents aren't prepared for. Today, we are joined by Anthony Damasceno, author and expert on empty nest transitions, who has written extensively about helping both married couples and single parents navigate this significant life shift. Anthony understands that the empty nest experience looks different for every family structure, and he's here to share practical strategies for not just surviving the transition, but thriving in this newfound chapter of life. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm super happy to be here. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Me too. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your professional experience?
Sure. Most of my career was in human resources. I worked basically doing all the things that an HR person does, and I did that for about 25 years. So everything from recruiting, hiring, firing, training, advising. And it grounded me on people in many ways. And the thing I liked about it, because there's HR people that are kind of police, and then there are HR people that are friends of the employee. So it's good to try and find that balance. But most of my career was in HR. About 2 weeks before COVID, I decided to step away from human resources and then jump into something new. And I wasn't sure what that new was going to be. My children came home, or two came home from college during COVID. And then I had in my head the book or books on empty nesting kind of, let's say, sauteing for several years. And I finally just got around to writing after they all went back to school and COVID kind of, stopped shutting things down, so to speak. But HR by trade, I consider myself a recovering HR executive, and now I guess I'm a writer by trade. So
yeah. Well, do you pull from life experiences or research? I know I'm just following up on your experience because it's so interesting how you pivoted from HR to writing these books.
yeah, I always wanted to I feel like there's a book in everyone. So I really feel everyone has a story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction or something they want to pass on and tell. So I did always think that I would write a book someday. And I think when I went through the empty nest transition, I have 3 children. And my first left, my eldest son left the house, and I still had a freshman and a sophomore, or a freshman and a junior in high school. So I had 2 high schoolers, my son left, and I saw some things going on in the world around me with other couples and with people going through that empty nest transition that kind of made me start formulating, wow, this is a strange time in people's lives.
Yeah.
And it hits a lot of people by surprise. And so I went through that. And then as I was going through that, I just kept thinking, gosh, I wish there was something out there to help me through this transition. And I didn't see anything. So, I guess that's the story of many books. I thought there was a need. And so I decided to write it. And yeah, I mean, I'm no perfect person. I made mistakes. I learned a ton. I did a lot of research for, 2+ years, just trying to dig into the facts. But, yeah, I think the empty nest transition is an underrated transition. I say that because I don't think people are prepared for it.
Absolutely. You're so right about that. And I want to dig right in with the feelings that parents have. I feel like from what I'm hearing, a lot of parents are blindsided by these emotions, even though it's something that they've been looking for or looking forward to during parenthood. What are some of the most common feelings that you've come across from other parents? And why do these emotions often catch parents off guard?
Yeah, I guess the first thing is if you think about big life events, right? You prepare for college. If you go off to college, you prepare to get married. Most people don't get married in 24 hours, right? There's planning and dating and all that. When you have a child, luckily you have at least 9 months to prepare in most cases to have that child. And a lot of us from in our 20s and 30s are starting to prepare for retirement, whether that's a 401k or whatever. But what people don't prepare for is their empty nest transition. And it is that gap from 44 to about 60 years old, when you're there, whether you're a single parent or whether you're in a couple, those children leave and your entire life changes. And to get to your question, the initial thing that some people, it's great, right? Their kids leave, they're happy, everything's smooth. But for a lot of people, the first feelings most people feel is sadness and loss, right? They feel like they've been an active parent for 2 decades, and everything that comes with active parenting, yes, the chasing them for homework and picking up their socks, but also the love, the hug, the feeling wanted, feeling needed. It's your own personal identity. I'm the coach, I'm the room mom, I'm the father. So when this changes, when these our children go off to school, there are a lot of emotions. And sadness and loss may be the beginning, but then I think people start looking inward. And now that I'm no longer an active parent, what is my new identity? And in some cases, now that I'm no longer an active parent, how are the rest of my relationships in my life with my spouse, with my family, with my friends? Because let's face it, as parents, we are all in, especially in today's society, our lives revolve around our kids, whether it's shuttling them around or looking after them or writing them to get their homework done.
Yeah, exactly. You touched a little bit about the household dynamic a little bit,
Mm.
Anthony. Let's talk about that. In your books, you address both married parents and single parents facing the empty nest. So, how do these experiences differ? I mean, aside from what we can expect, but what unique challenges does each group face during this time?
Yeah, what I saw with we'll address the married couples first. What I
Sure.
saw with that is there is some good in that a married couple has someone else to go through this transition with. But we talked about divorce rates in the past before this recording. And in the US, 20 years ago, 1 in 10 divorces were people over 50 years old. And today, in 2025, it's a little over 1 in 3 are 50 years old. So a question would be, why are people more prone to getting divorced in their 50s in 2025 than they were 15, 20 years ago? And I think some of those issues are couples have children. They dedicate their entire lives to those children. And the irony is the one person you can deprioritize when you are taking care of children and when you're married is your spouse. I have to show up to work. I have to pay bills. I have to feed my children. The one person I can forget and the one person who's supposed to forgive me is that spouse. And I think what happens for a lot of couples, and the reason why the divorce rate is getting so high for people 50 years and older, is because they look back on the 20 years and the person they deprioritize is the person that they married. And so that can cause stress in a relationship. I think when the children leave, you look at that partner and say, we have another 30 years together. Do I want to spend the next 30 years of my life? You like to golf, you like to work out, you like to travel. I don't like to do those things. Our whole lives were revolved around our children. Now that our children are gone, are we still a good match? So I think for married couples, there is a relationship kind of check that they need to do, along with the identity and control and sadness and those issues. But I think for a married couple, that's the hot spot. What are you and I going to do now that we're no longer parenting full time?
Mm-hmm.
I think for a single parent, in many ways, it's tougher. There's a t-shirt, being a single parent is my superpower. I love that t-shirt because I am not a single parent, but I did a lot of research and, I had a survey of single parents. Yeah, I got over 150 single parents answered my survey. And it's tough because their whole world, they don't have that other person in their life, so to speak. So their whole world is being a parent. And being a single parent means you are taking care of all of the duties that may be split for a couple. You are solely in charge of feeding and caring and looking after and shuttling and all of those things. So it's much more of a shock, or not much more, but you could see how it would be more of a shock to lose that partner, to lose that person you live with, to lose that other person in the household. And then you're alone and you're by yourself. And just like a married couple or a person in a relationship, you start thinking about, well, what do I need to prioritize with my own life as a single parent? What's important to me? What things have I given up in order to be a single parent that I'd like to re-engage in now that I'll have more time, maybe more income, maybe more ability to pursue the things I want to pursue. So it is a different struggle, but it's a struggle.
Yeah. Now, Anthony, one thing that I've seen come up a lot or intensify during the empty nest transition is codependency, whether it is with a married couple parent household or a single parent household. When parents become overly enmeshed with their children's lives and emotions, how can parents recognize if they've developed codependent patterns with their kids? And what steps can they take to establish healthier boundaries?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my personal case, if I looked back, I was what you would call a helicopter parent, right? And if anyone has a teenager, that a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old is probably not thinking about long-term college or long-term what they're going to do with the rest of their life. They're more interested in the person they're interested at school or playing video games or sports or whatever they're into. And so for me, I was on top of my children's grades. Obviously, I controlled their finances and their lives and the rules and expectations. And I think, to some degree, that's great parenting, and I'll pat myself on the back. In another way, it's helicopter parenting, and it's putting a lot of pressure on my children, and it is controlling aspects of their lives where I shouldn't necessarily be in full control. I had that realization with my son when he went off to school, and I changed, and I have obviously this stuff in the book, but I changed kind of my philosophy on some things for both of my daughters. Not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but I realized I needed to land that helicopter and let them fly solo. And I think that codependency is even tougher today. You see it with, I'll go to a friend's house for dinner, and they can have a child call 3 times while I'm there. And that child will be 22 years old, 18 years old, whatever. And so, is that great? Do they have a great relationship with their child? Yes. Is that a little much? Some people would say yes. We want our children to become adults. We want our children to make decisions and live their lives. And so I set some things up before my kids went away to school to make sure that happens. But I think I think in an era of hypercommunication, codependency is, you find my friends, you used to leave your home when you were a child and you came back at 5.
Yeah.
And now I know exactly where my children are. Even today, I have them find my friends, all three of them on my phone. I know who's at work, if they're at home, where they are. I don't know if they're safe or not when they're away at college, but I do know where they are. And I think that's a form of kind of codependency in some ways.
Yeah, you said it with the communication, the constant communication, being out, having an adult time, and then having your teenage or even young adult children call and ask, "Can you bring me something home?"
Yeah,
Like I think at some point there has to be some sort of healthy boundary so that everyone in the household can respect each other and give each other the space that they need, but also still have like that close knit relationship. So it is a balance for sure.
it
um,
is.
yeah. And I'm going to ask you for some tips. What are some healthy ways parents can maintain that relationship with their adult children or young adult children without becoming, like you said, landing that helicopter, becoming so overly involved in their lives, so that you can find that balance and still have that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, so it's very situational, right? I mean, if you're the parent of a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I mean, come on, you
Of
have to control aspects of their
mhm,
life. And that, it's not a dangerous world out there, but there are values, beliefs, expectations that you need to set, right? It's when your child is turning 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, where I think, not that that's the danger zone, but those are the zones when they are becoming more independent, and you want to foster that, and you want to ensure that you have a good relationship with them moving forward. So for me, switching from a controlling parent of teens to, I want to have a great relationship with my young adult children. I want them to want to come back for Thanksgiving. I want them to want to come back into my house and introduce their significant other, or
right.
want to come over and play games. I want to be an active part of their life. And so some of that is letting go of the control. Some of that is establishing boundaries, letting them make mistakes, letting them make their own decisions, even if some of those decisions may not be the best decisions. I think for children, and when they go off to college, it is the first time in their lives when they are independent of you. They're out of your house. And so that means they have some choices. They can choose to not pick up a phone and not talk to you. They can't do that when they live with you. They could choose to walk away. They can have their own beliefs. They can date the people they want to date. They can do all of those things that you may or may not agree with. And so the number one rule, people say, when your child is going off to college or coming away from you, is resolve conflicts. Try and
Mhm.
resolve any conflicts you have with them before they leave that house, because once they leave, those conflicts could build while they're gone,
Yeah,
right?
great advice. Before I move on to the next question, anything else? I feel like there are some other things that, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure. The number one thing for me was keep the lines of communication open.
Hmm.
And that's not necessarily texting them every day, but for me, I'd send them a St. Patrick's Day card. I'd send them an Easter card. Any excuse for me to reach out to my children and not bother them while they're out of the house, but just connect with them, right? Um, and let them know that I'm there and I'm thinking about them and I care about them. When my children went off to college, I stopped caring about grades. So, I mean, in high school, man, if there was a missing assignment, I was on top of my
Yeah.
children, right? But in college, let the grades go. What do I care if they get D's or A's in college? They got to college, it's their job now as young
Hmm.
adults, right? Who are now in college. Finances, I did something called a money drop, which is a little crazy, but I just gave them 6 months worth of money twice a year, so that I'm not dealing with I need money for gas, or I ran out of food. We put together a budget. I gave them the money associated with said budget, and they were on their own. And some months they ran out of money and they had to scrap and save and find some other ways to make ends meet. I'm not an ATM machine, right? So, but communication out of all those things is number one. Staying connected to them, supporting them, listening. If there's expectations and there's rules, there are some rules we have when children live in your house. There are some expectations we have when children live in your house. When they leave your house, the rules kind of go away. And now it just is on expectations. So if you have a conversation with them before they leave, Cynthia, about these are my expectations, that you go to class, that you try hard in school, that you're going to do the things you're going to do, but drugs and alcohol and things like that. I don't want that to distract you so much, right? I'm not putting down rules. I'm setting expectations. And I think if you take that approach, it's more of a partnering approach versus let me lay down some rules before you go off to college, Cynthia, right? I mean, that's
you're just changing the letters around in the word parent to partner.
Yeah.
How smart.
Yeah, I love that. Right. Absolutely. And it's again, we're going for the long. I mean, I want grandchildren, right? I want my children to like and want to be with me in the future. Not, they don't have to love me at 16 years old, but I'm thinking more of the long-term relationship and how can I foster that long-term relationship? Love, support, communication.
Yeah, these are great tips, Anthony. Thank you. I have one more question, and this is for my mom friends and, some father friends, but mostly moms are the ones who take a step back in their careers and do most of the household responsibilities. So, but for any parent who have defined themselves as the primary parent role in their household for 18 plus years, how can they rediscover themselves during this time and find their interests outside of being mom or dad?
Yeah, it's in both books I kind of walk through what did you like to do before. Let's face it, children change your life, right? Again, prior to having children, you weren't going to the soccer field, you weren't running to Trader Joe's 5 times a day, you weren't going to Target or whatever those things are you do with children, right? So what were your interests and what did you like to do prior to children? Did you like to paint? Did you like to work out? Did you like to play board games with friends? What were those things that you loved prior to children? And then what were so you make that list. What are some of the things you love doing with your children and that you want to continue? So let's say you play Frisbee golf with your children, or you play, again, board games or something like that with your children. Can you do that with someone else, right? This is something you still love to do with your children. And then what are all the things that you said you would like to do if you had more time, if you had more freedom, maybe even a little bit more disposable income over time, that you've been putting off? And, most people say, well, I'd work out more and I'd lose 10 pounds, or, maybe I'd write a book or those type of things. I think going back and looking at what you're passionate about pre-kids, passionate about with kids, and the things you've always wanted to do, whether that's bucket list things. It doesn't have to be traveling around the world. It could be just taking a nightly walk. Those are the things that you can kind of script out for yourself and create a new list of things that you want to do and want to achieve now that you're no longer actively parenting, 8+ hours a day. Right. And I think if everyone just thinks about that a little bit, you'll find that list is huge. I mean, it just is, right? There are so many things that you can do and may want to do now that you have the time to focus on yourself.
Yeah. Anthony, it was lovely to meet you. I'm so glad you were able to take some time and walk us through this transition in life. Tell us where we can find your books.
Yeah, the book's available pretty much everywhere. You can go to anthonydamasceno.com com or Google Anthony Damasceno or some spelling close to it, and you should be able to find it. Obviously, I'm on social media and I have 50 plus tips out there on YouTube, but AnthonyDamasceno.com is probably the best place to go if you just want more information. And again, you can get either book for single parents or the Empty Nest Blueprint, which is more couple focused, everywhere they sell books.
Thank you again, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. I really appreciate it.